It's 2020. There's no other camera in sight. No other camera that could stand up to such quality, pure performance, even though it came out like 5 years ago. Today, I want to talk about my beloved camera, the GH5. This physical body turns a year old tomorrow, so I just wanted to help celebrate its birthday by giving you a few reasons why I think it is the best budget camera for shooting music videos in 2020. Let's get right into it. Roll that intro. So last year for my birthday, I received a GH5. I was using the G85 for about 6 months before this. And ever since I got it, it was like I was trying to get the most out of everything. And like even after a year, I still think there's a few things that I haven't quite touched on, even though I've been using it for a whole year. So buying the GH5 was just a no-brainer with all the pro features that it offers and the cheap price. But I want to tell you the few features that I was actually excited about and the reason why it makes a really good camera to shoot music videos. So this camera has already been out forever, so there's all the specs and everything online, but I want to tell you why I think it's the best one for music videos specifically and the features that I actually use in real world everyday scenarios. So the things that I'm most stoked about are the pro level features, and the first one is setting the shutter angle instead of having to use shutter speed. So when you have the shutter angle set, you don't have to worry about changing your shutter speed when you change your frame rates. So this makes swapping between settings really easy, which was a little more difficult on other cameras. You'll also start to notice the little pattern here. I, like many of you, probably want to upgrade to a cinema camera in the future, but it's just not feasible to invest that money just yet. So you'll see that a lot of my points for buying this camera have to do with that. I love shooting slow motion with the variable frame rates. It comes in real handy, especially pairing it with that shutter angle tip from before. Taking that one simple step of not having to change that to adjust your exposure helps to speed up my workflow. And the faster you can do things on set, then the more shots you can actually take. The one part that sucks about variable frame rates is that it doesn't record the audio in camera, but it does process the image in slow motion. So if I want to show my client the shot, it lets them see exactly what they're going to see in slow motion when it comes out to the final product. I'm typically shooting in 60 frames or up until 120. It really just depends on how much light I can get into that sensor and how cool of a shot that I'm shooting will be in slow motion. But the best part about having the variable frame rate is you can slow it down or speed it up depending on how much light you actually have. So when I'm shooting all my music videos or anything that syncs to music, I love shooting in the 4K 10-bit 422 setting. Being able to shoot 10-bit internally is a game changer. Of course, I would love to shoot 4K slow-mo in 10-bit, but I understand there's limitations to certain things. And when I'm shooting music videos, the majority is in 24 frames. So just being able to color grade that in 10-bit is just a complete lifesaver. If you've tried color grading anything in 10-bit, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. If you want to see some tips on how I color grade my footage, just let me know in the comments. Speaking of color grading, it definitely goes hand in hand with different color profiles. And I'm recently just moving my workflow over to Vlog. It took a little bit of getting used to being able to expose it correctly, but after a few controlled camera tests, I was able to dial it in, and I think I got it worked out to where I can use it on professional shoots. Especially when you shoot on the 4K 10-bit setting. For me, it looks like a more natural look, and of course you still have that flexibility to make it more punchy in post. Linked below are some of the LUTs that I use. Personally, I don't find the VariCam ones that are linked on Panasonic's website to be nearly as good, but you find what works best for you. Also, you can see it's no surprise that I like working in log because that's how cinema cameras shoot. Are you seeing the pattern? So researching the GH5, even though it was like 4 years old, it still punches way above its price range, and packing all the pro level features into a little body like this really makes that jump from this to a cinema camera not nearly as daunting. Also, because of the specs, I know I'm going to be able to keep this camera as a backup camera for quite a long time. It's honestly too good of a camera to give up. A few other honorable mentions for things I love about the GH5 are the native and the adapted lenses. You can pretty much put any lens on that camera with an adapter, and then it just makes it much more of a beast of a camera. And even though you can't get it in cinema cameras, I still think the image stabilization is amazing in this thing. It seriously helps all my handheld shooting and saves the majority of my shots. Finally, there is a big caveat to this camera, but it's really not that big of a deal for me because I know upgrading to cinema cameras, I'm not gonna have this option anyway. And if you haven't guessed it by now, it's the autofocus. It's terrible and unusable, but for me, that was actually a plus because I knew I was going to have to get used to being being able to use manual focus. And by being able to use manual focus, that means I can use any camera and I don't have to rely on a specific brand to be able to get what I need out of the camera. But really at the end of the day, you don't need to care about all this camera gear and all this equipment. Perfecting your craft is always going to be more important. So just make sure you're using the most inspiring tool for the job and make whatever you have work for you. Just go out there and shoot something. Gently tap that like button and subscribe if you feel so inclined. My name's Ciprian. I'll catch you guys in the next one. I'm taking this with me.